¿Escuchan? Ahora sí. Buenas tardes. Gracias por venir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to my talk, Design Thinking to the Power of Doing. I've got a good piece of news and a bad piece of news, so let's start by the bad one. The bad one is that Jonathan Kuban, who was going to come after this talk, missed his flight, so he's not coming to our next talk. So this is the last lecture in this room. He is famous because he's an expert in social media, and he's always posting photographs about his trips around the world, and he's always holding a poster saying "Mom, I'm fine" for his mom. Imelda, he's fine, we can tell him. He's on his way, and he'll come tomorrow. So it's going to be at 6:30 tomorrow. So you can listen to his talk tomorrow at 6:30. So let's start with mine. From design thinking to the power of doing. Before telling you what design thinking is, and to make this crazy association of ideas to get where I want to get, let me tell you about design thinking. You are in a very complex world. You're working for customers, for clients that have to solve complex things. Everything that involves facing complex things can't be done easily. For many years, I've been doing design thinking, and I think it's a very good way to get closer to solving complex problems. To start, then, I would like to share this idea with you, this sentence with you. An idea is a network, and so at the end of my talk, we can go back to it. This is a sentence that will allow us to wrap up as well. So this is the amusing part where I can share with you the madness inside me. I'm going to share with you 3 things I really like. The first one is chaos. We are used to looking at chaos in a negative or bad way. Those of you who are in creative environments know that chaos and association of ideas is good, but apart from the creative world, chaos is good in the normal world up to a certain extent. A lot of chaos is bad, but some chaos is good. For instance, from science and mathematics, we can see noise in audio. When you take a sound wave and you want to digitalize it, you have to take a certain number of samples per second, and you would allocate a value of the height. When you digitalize it, to go from a continuous wave to the digital wave, there is an error that causes a certain disruption to the human ear, and our ears don't like it very well. It is very well sampled except for that margin of error, and our brains don't like it. And so how did engineers find a way to solve it? They add noise to the audio wave, and our brain is much more used to extract a signal in a noisy environment, and our brain likes that much better than having a distorted signal in a pure environment. So chaos generates a positive result. Something else is little rules that explain or build complex things. For instance, fractals with small rules, you can build very elaborate things. Or flocking. If you want to model flocking, you can do it with 3 very simple rules. The first one is that every single bird should not be in the same place where another bird close by is, because otherwise they will crash. And they have to follow the average direction of the bird next to that one, and that bird can't be too far away from the other birds, because otherwise there won't be any flock. And in fact, films where you see lots of things generated by computer that behave all together, follow these rules. And something else that is a little bit difficult to explain is complex systems. These systems involve certain elements with certain relations, and they generate a result that is far bigger than the bigger or smaller than the sum of the parts. For instance, complex systems don't have a central control. There are many parts. It's similar to the flocking, but it's a bit more complex because you can't predict what's going to happen. And that's what Nicolas said in his talk early this morning, talking about ecosystems. Ecosystems are complex systems. You don't know how they are going to evolve. You can't predict it. The other thing about complex system is that those elements are connected, and they're connected in certain ways. It doesn't matter when or who with they connect or how, but that's going to determine how information flows, or how it impacts on the brain, and how neurons are connected in a certain way and ideas generated. In complex system, you get non-linear results. It could be more than 2, it could be far more than 2, many more than 2, or 0. So a little medicine doesn't do you any good. If it's too bad, it could be, if it's too much, it could be bad. If it's too little, it would do you no good. So that's it. And one of the last characteristics is that one of the elements is that there is certain autonomy, but also integration with the rest of the elements, because the moment it's not integrated, it dies away, and when it dies, there is an evolution. That's the way complex systems evolve. So those 3 things that I really like is because there is some tension among them. So chaos is related to things that explain things, and complex systems have rules that can't be predicted. So it's like, a certain tension there. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, a long time ago, I was making a project management course, the traditional things for project management and so on. And to do something funny and different, our teacher showed us a video of this guy. Do you know who he is? Leo Maslia. This is the guy who is very similar to Leo Maslia. He's David Kelly, and he's the founder of a company called Video. It was founded 30 years ago, and he generates innovation for other companies. They are so good that they became famous with a system called shopping cart video. That's the video that our teacher showed us. In 1 week, this company would take up a project which was to generate or innovate a supermarket cart. In half an hour, you can see how these people would follow a process, and in 5 days, they would generate innovations around a shopping cart. And I loved it. And I loved it because what Leo Maslia was doing was an apology to chaos. He was taking some chaos, he was putting in some simple rules, and he was creating a system, a complex system that was generating innovation. And that's what I want to talk to you about, design thinking at IDEO. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Design thinking at IDEO is more than the process. I'll tell you a little bit about process. There are some practices, and there's a lot of information in the internet. And then there's something that is quite obvious, and that's the mindset. In the same way that Nicolas was saying that you need something to generate things, you have a mindset. All right. About the process. Well, the process is very simple. Depending on who tells you about, has 2, 5, 6 steps. The most natural one is 5 or 3. So you basically take a problem, and you go to the user, you try to find information and define the problem, you make lots of observations, you ask questions, you see what they do, and with that information you go back home and you start thinking about how to solve the problems that you've detected. You make a prototype to build something to validate it, you test it, and you start once again. So when we talk about the design system, you know, the video does the idea, the idea, it does this very quickly to see whether the problem that they're trying to solve is the problem that adds value. This is very interesting. Something else is that there are certain practices that are very good. Let me give you my top 3. Those are the ones I like the most. One is how they define innovation. It's what is in the intersection of technically feasible. It's not the only thing. It's commercially feasible. You can make money out of it, and someone wants it. If there is no intersection in those 3 things, there is no innovation. There could be a technical curiosity, something funny, but it doesn't generate money. So for them, that's innovation. Something that is very important from what they do, they are all the time trying to be at the same time, at the same place twice. And so they are creating ideas and they are analyzing whether those ideas are valid. So they create ideas and they analyze them. They create ideas and they analyze them. Convergence and divergence. They are in that constant movement, assessing things as if there were 2 mindsets at the same time, analytical mindset and intuitive mindset. And something else that they do is that they build in the cheapest way, because the important thing is to validate and validate and validate. So those 3 things go far beyond the process itself. They add value. And so they have a mindset, and they're super optimistic to create, to make an innovation. They are possibilists. They think that they can find a solution to anything. It's a very special mindset, as you can imagine. They're a little bit crazy. And the other thing is that they are very empathetic. They, all the time, apart from what you're telling them, they're trying to analyze you, trying to see what you do and why you do it, and even if they don't know why you do it. So that's a typical and very important characteristic of the culture. And the other thing is that they find T-shaped minds. Now, what's that? Now, they try to find people who have a vertical type of thinking. That's the bar of the T, and that they can also be linked to other topics or industries to generate ideas. They find that people who have a specialization and general knowledge can generate ideas. And on the basis of those people, they can mix teams. And so they mix different teams and make interdisciplinary, not multi, but interdisciplinary. That is, many disciplines that can interact. Sometimes it's difficult to interact because in the friction, you have the spark. And, you know, Gaston and me can talk together to build things. Now, what are all these things? That's brainstorming. That's the typical thing that chaos and rules. They have 7 rules to try and dominate chaos, to build something. Now, prototyping is the same thing. They would say, we're going to build something that is cheap to test the idea, because we don't know what idea will work out. And so I have to throw away what I don't like and be particularly skillful and realize when something is successful. That is, I don't need to be intelligent. I must be sufficiently wise to know what could be good. And so this is a new non-linearity. I invest a little bit and I generate a lot of results. And the good thing about design thinking is that there is a lot of asymmetry between what you invest and the benefit you obtain. Many times we say you can't move around, you have to advance. Well, no, you have to stay on until you find something, because it's not 2 days more. 2 days more is nothing in terms of cost, whereas the benefit you can get is much better. So they mixed chaos with some rules to build a complex system that innovates. So that's the idea. And they call it design thinking. So if you are careful and pay attention because you are interested in this, everyone is talking about design thinking. I stopped talking about design thinking in 2014. When it started picking up, I I stopped talking about it. People talk a lot about design thinking. They think about it, but what they are missing is that the secret of design thinking is doing. They use doing to validate things to get to the final idea. So if you hear someone saying that it's the process, well, it's not. It's far more than that. It's not a question of going in circles. It's the mindset that allows you to have a company that is doing that, to try to show the idea. It's like the brain. I know it's mixing this thing all the time, trying to generate things. You have to have the freedom to skip steps and go back. If you do it very linearly, then you're not doing the process well. Something that Jim Brown said, and I liked very much, he said, we are doing this all the time. When we try to be very efficient, we fail in our capacity of innovation. And they do this in a very specific way. There is a secret that they don't tell you about. They do power of doing and learning by doing, but they do some special things about learning that are very interesting. I found the name. It's called technology brokering. They've got a way of getting organized and doing things that generate an acceleration in the number of innovations. And let me tell you how. That's technology brokering. They start with these people who are T-shaped brains, T-shaped minds. And what happens is that they look for those people because those people have the capacity of generating more ideas because they're exposed to more things. He's going to generate more things than a specialized person. And they mix different people, different teams to generate diverse teams. These teams that can talk about different things can generate more things than if the team is very homogeneous, all engineers or all architects and so on. There is wealth there. And they are also in the center of a diverse ecosystem of the most diverse industries of very different countries, different origins that come up to them to ask them how to innovate in one thing or the other. And so what they do is that on the basis of an idea in an industry, they can cross it and take it to another industry. They cross ideas. And what they do is they are teaching other people about new ideas. And those new ideas go to the teams and they go to the ecosystem, and that's where the loop, the feedback loop, starts for innovation, to generate innovation. Therefore, when everyone started talking about it, I went to another stage of learning by doing, things that didn't work for us in GeneXus. What things can we use from the things that they do that can be useful? And one of the things I try to do whenever I can, I don't always find it, is find people who have that T-shaped mind. Mauro, you are there. Yeah, don't hide away. He had a course in architecture, design. He programs. I don't know if it's a T. I think it's an X. But apart from being shy, he allows us to be connected to the development department in other ways that we couldn't before. So we can have a very sophisticated team. That's one of the things we are doing. I don't want to pester you about what we are doing, but basically we are learning. For instance, the power of doing was also part of our learning process. When if you heard Nicolas, while I stole the idea from them and I kept it and I said I'm going to use it, and so I came back with that. But at that time we had the sentence, but you have to dress the girl up, and how can we show this concept in images? How can we feed it to make it stronger? And so we split into teams. We had 3 different teams with ideas, and we could see that there was an idea that was good, expressed in different things, and those were people, and that's how the community came up in the graph of the event. And once we had the idea, when we went on iterating, and if you put in the maximum complexity of the graph, 6 hours before the event, we put in the last bow, let's say, to the event. And so there are things that you can take up from design thinking. Now, perhaps you are here because you're interested in it or because you're following the process. Now, how can you accelerate that innovation process? in your companies, let me give you two things that you can take back home as homework.
La primera es un cuestionario que hace un señor.
The first one is a questionnaire by someone called Ed One. Very simple 10 questions. He assesses the following, but let me tell you about the ones I'm interested in the most. What is the degree of freedom that you give to the people in your team? What I like to tell the guys working with me is say, okay, let me give you something that you can do, and then you come back with something you want. Do whatever you want with it. And in that do what you want is this freedom to challenge them, to show me that I'm wrong and showing me something better. The other thing has to do with the playfulness or the humor, because in a tense environment, as Tim Brown said, you can't generate anything. When I'm walking along the corridors and I hear some laughter, I know that something good is happening. There is synapses, he would say. And something that is very, very important is dynamism and sharing. What's the dynamics of sharing information or things? You know, I try to know what's happening all around in support. I can't, but, you know, or in development, or I try to link things. So what are you doing to know what's happening in other areas? And so you take those 10 questions, you answer them, and according to the answers, you'll be able to improve and amplify the contents or the things that you generate following the same design thinking process, and you'll obtain better results. But now I'll get to my last curve in this talk. How do we go about what we saw at the beginning? An idea is a network. All right, let's go into it through this. Why is it that an idea is a network? In your brain, you have a certain number of neurons that were triggered and generated something that was new. An idea is a network in a person. And the same thing happens with teams. An idea is a network in a team. Several people get together in a network and generate something new. That's an idea. That's a network. And in ecosystems, when different companies interact to deal with a market or find an opportunity and work together, that's a network, and it's generating a new idea to generate something. So we're talking about networks of ideas. So if a brain is an idea network, my question is, what are you doing? What weird things are you seeing? What different people are you seeing and teams? What are you giving them so that they can make more connections, so that they can see more things? And that's very important. They are, you know, these agencies are exposed to thousands of different things to get ideas from everywhere. So ideas, give ideas, and see how you can improve. And once again, if teams are a generator of ideas, an idea network, how can you improve your teams? How you mix them? Are they interdisciplinary? What are the different profiles? What things are you giving them? What are you been exposed to? So am I closed in or am I clear with an external mindset? That's very important. And then at the level of ecosystems, if you are in an ecosystem and that ecosystem is competing with someone, then you too, those two same companies in competition, you can do something together for a new ecosystem. So apart from partners, of course, things that you can do with partners or with other companies, but even with your competitors, you can create things. So to sum up, you have to question this. What elements make up your system? How can you connect that information in those companies? And then how you generate synergies and feedback loops. You know, the idea to the person to the team to the ecosystem, and go back. So that's very important. So my invitation to you, and to wrap up this track, is to release that feedback loop. You have to generate that synergy that follows this. Not only the process, take up some chaos, follow the process, but don't simplify. But complexity involves finding the value. And if you can do that, what you'll have is the power of doing. Thank you.